Alright, so here we have the turbo side by side. So I want to do a side by side comparison just to give you guys an idea of why I'm switching over to this style turbo as opposed to this one. Nothing wrong with this turbo, still a really good option, but this one will be a lot better for what I'm going for. This one on the right is a BorgWarner S300, their Airworks series, so more of a economical turbo. I think this is what a lot of diesel owners use as upgrades for their trucks. But like I said, still a really good option. The biggest reason I'm switching over is because this one is just a little too laggy for what I want. This one doesn't really begin spooling until about 2700 RPM and doesn't hit full boost until about 45 or a little bit after that. I want a little bit more of a linear curve, so I decided to go with this one. This over here is a PSR GTX clone. So essentially it is a Chinese turbocharger, but it's still a really good option. Pulsar Turbos makes pretty good products. Their quality control is a little bit better than most Chinese brands, so it should still be a fine option. This is their 3582, so pretty much a clone of the GTX 3582 made by Garrett. In every other way, it's pretty much the same as the GTX. It is still dual ball bearing as opposed to this one being journal bearing. And you can see the difference. I mean, the journal bearing, it spins, but if you look at the ball bearing, it just spins better. Other than that, some of the biggest differences is obviously the size. I mean, you can look at this thing, the frame of it is just massive. Even though the compressor wheel on this one is bigger than this one, it's still way smaller in the frame, so it will fit in the chassis a little bit better. This one fit, but it was touching a lot of pieces in the engine bay. This one will fit a little bit better. You can even see from right here. If you look at it from this side, I mean, you can definitely see the difference in size. The core is just a little bit bigger as well. So hopefully this thing will spool a little bit better than this one. So I have to modify a few things. Obviously I have to add coolant lines. You don't have to, but I think I'd prefer to have them, especially if we're going to be doing any kind of drifting or anything with this car. Just to make sure that we don't wreck this turbo. It isn't a very expensive turbo, but I'd still like to keep it as healthy as possible. But yeah, this thing, I'm going to keep it around. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe I'll put it in another project car, maybe do something with it at some other point. They have gone up in price, so I could get my money back on it, realistically. But I think I'm going to keep it around because you never know when you need a spare turbo. So now, I have to modify the entire downpipe because obviously the turbo is completely different. The flange is different, spacing is different, size is different, everything. So I'm just going to remake a new downpipe and then modify the midsection to fit it. But yeah, so now I'm going to take the hot side off and start fabbing up inside the car to make sure that everything fits. I took the opportunity to go ahead and throw on the oil bung for the oil drain. I had to get a new one because the old one for the BorgWarner just doesn't fit with the Garrett's. I didn't really think about that until I got the turbo. It's shorter spacing from bolt to bolt. And I guess it makes sense because they're just completely different turbos. But If you do end up getting one of these billet pieces, go ahead and spring for the one with the O-ring. These have a high temp oil seal, so they're just a little bit better at sealing, and you don't have to worry about that as much. It is a little bit more expensive, but honestly, it's just a much better piece. Also, side note, they do offer an extended version. I have both of them just in case this doesn't fit or doesn't work for some reason. But we're gonna go ahead and try it with this one, just because there's not really a lot of space over there, especially with the core being super small compared to the old one. The old one, everything fit. I mean, there wasn't any issues with that, but this new one, everything's more compact, which is nice for just keeping everything consolidated. But it's also kind of a pain in the ass because now you have to make these big lines fit in these smaller spaces. But that's why I'm doing all this mock-up, so I know I have every fitting that I need. Once I start making lines, I want everything to go as smooth as possible and not have to order a bunch of fittings. So the oil feed's pretty self-explanatory. The same line that I had before fits, so I'm just gonna keep that. I'm not gonna do anything with that one. So that fits there perfectly fine. The oil drain is the only one I'm kind of concerned about, just because I have to kick it back this way quite a bit. Alright, so that kind of works pretty well. The only thing is now is if it'll fit with the compressor in the front. Should be fine. I think that'll work. It might be touching the actual wheel well on the line, but it should be fine. It's got, like I said, it's got the heat sleeving, so it's not that big of a deal. You can kind of see it down there. It's angled out towards that way. So that should work.